At the end of the year, I traveled back to my boyfriend's rural hometown to celebrate the new year with his family. His childhood sweetheart asked what I liked to eat, and I told her just one thing: I was allergic to ginger. At the New Year's Eve dinner, every single dish was loaded with ginger. I managed a few sips of chicken soup that appeared ginger-free, until my boyfriend's childhood sweetheart smiled sweetly at me. Adeline Pruitt. I ground the ginger into a fine powder and stirred it right in. Doesn't it taste wonderful? Before I could respond, my face began to swell and burn. She burst out laughing. Adeline, how did your face turn into a pig's head? I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. After I was discharged, she offered to help pack my things. I specifically told her not to touch the documents in my folder. That afternoon, while tending the fire, she casually tossed my folder into the flames.
Contract worth millions destroyés.
I confronted her. Furious, my boyfriend cut me off, irritation dripping from every word. Doreen was just trying to help. Don't be so ungrateful. That night, Doreen came to my room with a bottle of wine and apology on her lips. But my boyfriend's urging, I drank a few glasses. My head grew heavy, my thoughts sluggish. She helped me back to my room. I reminded her to lock the door behind her. 10 minutes later, several men climbed into my bed. I fought back with everything I had. They beat me to death. When my parents demanded justice, Doreen spoke first. Adeline said she was lonely, sleeping by herself. My boyfriend backed her up, publicly condemning me as a woman too loose to live, who had died in bed, exactly as she deserved. Then I opened my eyes. I was back at the moment before, traveling to my boyfriend's hometown for the new year. Adeline, what do you like to eat? I'll make extra of your favorites. That voice, those exact words. I looked around, taking in my surroundings, and the truth crashed over me. I had been reborn. My boyfriend, Kevin Simmons, nudged my arm. What are you spacing out for? Doreen's asking you a question. I buried the storm raging inside me and smiled. I'm allergic to ginger. As long as there's no ginger, I'm happy. Oh, and feel free to add extra scallions. I love them. Something calculating flickered behind Doreen Whitney's eyes. Got it, Adeline. No problem at all. The moment Doreen disappeared into the kitchen, Kevin turned to me puzzled. Addie, I'm the one who's allergic to ginger. Since when are you? I let out a soft laugh. We've been together so long. I've started mixing up your habits with mine. But it doesn't matter. I'll eat whatever. His face melted into a look of pure devotion. He reached for me, arms open. Addie, after the new year, I'll talk to my mom about setting a date for our wedding. I stepped back before he could touch me, swallowing the hatred clawing at my throat. Let me go unpack first. Back in my room, my palms were slick with sweat. In my previous life, when Dorian had asked what I liked to eat, I told her I was allergic to scallions. The result, every dish at the New Year's Eve dinner was covered in them. I choked down my disgust and stuck to a bowl of chicken soup that looked safe. Then Doreen had smiled at me. Adeline, I ground the scallions into powder and mixed it into the soup. Tastes pretty good, right? I shot to my feet, ready to unleash my fury, but my face erupted and swollen, burning agony. Doreen had pointed at me and held with laughter. Adeline, your face looks like a giant pig head. This is hilarious. I called 911. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Kevin's explanation afterwards still echoed in my mind. Addie, Doreen didn't mean it. She thought you said you liked scallions. She's like a little sister to me. Can't you just let it go? But now I understood the truth. Doreen had done it on purpose. Every single thing. That evening, Kevin called me out for dinner. The moment we sat down at the table, his face fell. The corner of my mouth curved upward. Every dish on the table was laced with finely minced ginger, so small you couldn't pick it out. And not a single scallion in sight. Doreen stared at me, challenge glinting in her eyes. Adeline, I spent all afternoon on these dishes. You have to try everything. Kevin opened his mouth to speak, but I caught his arm and leaned in close. It's New Year's Eve. Let's not hurt Doreen's feelings. His gaze softened, instantly turning toward Doreen with that familiar tenderness. Doreen, thank you for all your hard work today. She smiled sweetly. Kevin stuck to his drink, not touching a single dish. It wasn't until Delilah Simmons brought out a pot of chicken soup that he stirred it with a spoon, checked for ginger slices and finding none, downed 3 bowls in quick succession. The food didn't appeal to me either. I barely lifted my chopsticks. That's when Doreen slid a bowl of soup toward me. Adeline, this is free-range chicken soup. I simmered it for 3 hours. You have to try it. Memories of my past life flashed through my mind. I declined, saying I didn't care for chicken. Doreen's eyes instantly rimmed with red, as if I'd dealt her some devastating blow. Adeline, did I do something wrong? I made the soup especially for you. Kevin shot me a look of displeasure. It's just soup. Would it kill you to take a sip? Do you really have to upset Doreen on New Year's Eve? His parents glared at me too. Doreen spent all afternoon cooking for you. And this is how you repay her? This is free-range chicken. You city folks can't even get your hands on this. Don't be ungrateful. I didn't want to argue. I took a few sips. Triumph flickered in Doreen's eyes. Adeline, I ground the ginger into powder before adding it. Pretty good, isn't it? Before I could respond, Kevin gasped, pointing at the soup. You put ginger in this? Doreen nodded. Kevin, the soup wouldn't taste right without ginger. Kevin hurled his bowl across the room. Didn't Adeline tell you she's allergic to ginger? That you shouldn't add any? Doreen burst into tears.
I didn't know.
I thought she said she liked ginger. Besides, she's fine, isn't she? I was fine. Kevin, on the other hand, was not. He tried to say something else, but his hand flew to his chest and he collapsed. Panic seized Doreen's face. Kevin, what's wrong? I pressed my hand against the allergy medication in my pocket, the one I'd bought that afternoon, and forced urgency into my voice. His throat is swelling shut from the allergic reaction. Call an ambulance. If we wait too long, he'll suffocate. His parents scrambled to dial 911. By the time the paramedics arrived, Kevin was barely breathing. He spent a full day and night in surgery. Before they finally wheeled him out, the surgeon let out a heavy sigh. The patient is severely allergic to ginger. And you let him consume that much of it? What, one more minute, and we wouldn't have been able to save him. The color drained from Doreen's face. She whipped toward me. Kevin is allergic to ginger. Why didn't you say anything? I blinked. The picture of innocence. I didn't, but I specifically told you not to add ginger. Kevin was right there. He heard me. I turned to his parents. Mr. and Mrs. Simmons, you were both there too. I made it very clear.
No hinjer.
Delilah's gaze turned to ice as she rounded on Doreen. Doreen Whitney, my son, was kind enough to invite you to spend New Year's with our family, and you nearly killed him. Adeline told you not to add ginger, and you ground it into powder and put it in anyway. Her voice dropped cold and sharp. Is this intentional? Doreen started up with her waterworks again. Mr. and Mrs. Simmons. I didn't mean to. I thought Adeline said Kevin liked ginger, so I added a little extra rod. Shoved her aside. How old are you? Can't even understand simple words. Where's your brain? I watched them turn on each other, a faint smile tugging at my lips. In my past life, after they'd put me in the hospital, Kevin's parents had spent hours convincing me that Doreen was young, that she'd meant well, that I shouldn't hold a grudge. Funny how a needle doesn't hurt until it pricks your own skin. Kevin stirred awake, then his voice weak. Mom, Dad, don't blame Doreen. It's my fault I didn't explain things clearly to her. Only after Doreen offered to cover the surgery and medical bills did his parents finally stop their tirade. A month later, Kevin was discharged. That evening, while I was packing up his things, Doreen came scurrying over. Adeline, let me help you pack. It's my fault Kevin ended up hospitalized with that allergic reaction. I was about to refuse when Kevin caught my arm. If she doesn't do something to make up for it, he'll just keep feeling guilty. At his words, I gave a small nod and stopped protesting. As Doreen sorted through the items, she looked up at me. Which things are important to you? I'll be extra careful with those. I let my eyes narrow slightly, then pointed at a brown paper bag. Everything else is whatever. But that bag.
Don't touch it.
What's inside is extremely important. Inside was the $500,000 Kevin had withdrawn to show off to his relatives during the New Year visit. Kevin glanced at me and added with a chuckle. That bag is your Adeline's most prized possession. Seriously, don't mess with it. Something dark flickered in Doreen's eyes. The corner of my mouth curved upward. In my previous life, Doreen had also insisted on helping me pack when I was discharged, all under the guise of apologizing. I'd stressed repeatedly that the folder in my suitcase was critical, that she absolutely shouldn't touch it. That afternoon, when I couldn't find the folder, I asked her about it. She blinked at me with that innocent face of hers. I couldn't find any paper to start the fire, so I used it for kindling. I've been so furious, I couldn't stop myself from shouting. That folder contained a partnership deal my company worked months to secure. Because of you, we lost tens of millions. Kareen had burst into tears looking like a rain-soaked flower. Adeline, I thought you said that folder was useless. I had no idea it was so important. And Kevin had stepped in front of her, shielding her. Adeline, she just misunderstood you. It wasn't on purpose. Besides, you're so talented. Just sign another deal. Why do you have to be so aggressive with a young girl? This time, I wanted to see just how magnanimous Kevin would be. When Doreen destroyed his $500,000. That night, I went to the kitchen to wash my hands and caught Doreen sneaking around with something. The moment she spotted me, he hid it behind her back. but I'd already glimpsed the corner of that brown paper bag. I pretended not to notice and walked away. With Kevin out of the hospital, relatives and friends came by to visit.
What?
One of them looked at Kevin and said, "Kevin, your mom tells me you work at a big company, making tens of thousands a month, with year-end bonuses in the six figures. You're the most successful kid in this whole family." Another chimed in, "Kevin, you're doing so well out there, but you didn't even buy your parents decent clothes for the new year. My son only makes 5,000 a month, and this coat he bought me costs 3,000 plus. He got me a whole bunch of ginseng and deer antler supplements. Kevin, don't tell me you haven't actually made any money out there. And you're just broke, standing here bragging and talking big in front of all of us." Kevin's parents were obsessed with appearances. "My son works at a major publicly traded company. He makes at least 500,000 a year. How could he possibly be broke?" Kevin shot to his feet. "I figured instead of buying my parents gifts, I'd just give them cash directly. That way they can buy whatever they need." One of the relatives squinted at him. "So, how much did you give your parents then? Don't tell me it was just a few $100. What's that good for? Can't even buy a decent bottle of liquor." Kevin flicked an invisible speck from his cuff, affecting an air of casual nonchalance. "Oh, not much. Just 500,000. I couldn't help but sneer internally. Kevin's salary plus year-end bonus barely hit 300,000, and he spent money like water. He'd only managed to save 100,000. The other 400,000 was borrowed from the bank. I'd tried to talk him out of it before, but he'd waved me off. If I don't bring back some real money, those relatives will look down on me. Besides, I'll pay it back right after New Year. It'll be fine." Remembering those words, I glanced toward the kitchen. "Doreen, don't disappoint me." Kevin's relatives were stunned. 500,000, that much? But some remained skeptical. "For real? If you've got the guts,
Show us."
anyone can run their mouth." Kevin chuckled. "I'll go get it right now." A few minutes later, he emerged from the bedroom. "Adeline, where did you put the money?" "I can't find it anywhere." I feigned confusion. "I don't know. Doreen was the one organizing everything today. Let me ask her." I hurried to the kitchen, putting on an anxious front. "Doreen, where's the leather bag from the suitcase?"
Give it to me.
"It's important." Flash of triumph flickered in Doreen's eyes. "Oh, no, Adeline. I was trying to start the fire earlier but couldn't get it going. So I tossed that leather bag in to help it catch." I raised my voice deliberately, letting my anger ring out. "Doreen, do you have any idea how important that was? You burned it." Doreen's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Adeline. I thought you said it wasn't important, so I just burned it." Kevin heard the crying and strode in, irritation written all over his face. "Adeline, what are you doing now?" Before I could respond, Doreen cut in. "Kevin, it's all my fault. I misheard and accidentally burned something of Adeline's." Kevin frowned at me. "It's not like she did it on purpose. You should have kept track of your own things instead of blaming her." Then his voice softened as he turned to comfort Doreen.
Don't cry.
"It's not your fault.
Keep
Crying and you'll turn into a little spotted kitten." Doreen nodded, nestling into Kevin's arms over his shoulder. She shot me a look of pure smug triumph. "Kevin, you're always so good to me." Kevin laughed softly. "So, what exactly did you burn that's got Adeline so worked up?" Doreen's voice was sweet and coy. "That leather bag from the white suitcase this morning." The kitchen went deadly silent. Even the crackling of the firewood seemed to pause. Kevin's laughter died in his throat. He looked at Doreen, his smile freezing into a grotesque mask of confusion. The leather bag? The brown one? From the bottom of the suitcase." Doreen blinked, her eyelashes wet with tears, looking like a fragile doll. "Yes, Kevin. Adeline said it wasn't important. Why are you looking at me like that? It was just some old papers, right?" I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "I told you it was important, Doreen. I told you specifically not to touch it. Just like I told you not to put ginger in the soup." Kevin pushed Doreen aside, stumbling toward the stove. He grabbed the iron poker, his hands shaking violently. He raked it through the burning embers. Sparks flew, landing on his expensive pants, but he didn't flinch. He dragged a charred, smoking lump out of the fire. It was the metal frame of the bag. Inside, amidst the gray ash, were the partially consumed remains of stacks of paper. But not just paper. The fire had eaten the edges, but the center of the stack was still visible. The distinct green ink of fresh banknotes. The face of Benjamin Franklin stared up at Kevin, curling and blackening as the heat consumed it. "Money," Kevin whispered. A strangled sound escaped his throat. "It's money." The relatives crowded the doorway. "Holy hell," one of the uncles gasped. Is that real cash?" Kevin fell to his knees. He grabbed a handful of the burning ash, not caring that it seared his skin. "My money. My 500,000. It's all gone." Doreen let out a piercing shriek. What? That was money? I thought. Adeline said. She spun toward me, her face pale. You set me up. You did this on purpose. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my voice cool and level. I set you up? I told you not to touch it. You're the one who sneaked into my room, stole the bag, and threw it in the fire because you were jealous. You wanted to burn my things. How was I supposed to know you'd be stupid enough to burn $500,000? Kevin's mother, Delilah, let out a wail that sounded like a dying animal. She rushed forward and slapped Doreen across the face. The sound cracked through the room like a whip. You stupid girl. You burned my son's fortune. Delilah screamed, grabbing Doreen by the hair. That was for us. That was our retirement. Kevin, help me. Doreen cried, reaching out to him. But Kevin didn't move. He was staring at the ashes, his eyes hollow. He turned to me, his expression twisting from despair to rage. Adeline, why didn't you stop her? You knew. You must have known. I tried, I said, my voice dripping with ice. But you said, don't blame Doreen. She's just trying to help. You said, she's innocent. Well, Kevin, this is the price of her innocence. $500,000. I walked over to the table where the relatives were standing, stunned into silence. I picked up my purse. Kevin, clearly you and your family have some financial issues to work out. And since you've made it clear that Doreen's feelings matter more than my property, or in this case, your own money, I think we're done. Addie, wait. Kevin scrambled up, his hands covered in soot and burns. You can't leave. The bank. I borrowed that money. If I don't pay it back next month, the interest, they'll take the apartment. You have savings, right? You have to help me. The relatives gasped. Borrowed. The uncle sneered. I knew it. The boy's a fraud. I looked at Kevin, looking pathetic and small. I don't have to do anything. You wanted to play the big shot. You wanted to protect your little sister. Now, you can pay for it. I turned and walked out of the house, into the cold winter air. Behind me, the sounds of Delilah screaming and Doreen sobbing were music to my ears. I returned to the city that night. The first thing I did was change the locks on my apartment. The second was to call the landlord of the apartment Kevin and I had shared, which was in my name, and terminate the lease. 2 weeks passed. My life was peaceful. I secured the partnership deal that Doreen had burned in my previous life. Without the stress of Kevin's family, my skin cleared up, and I slept better than I had in years. But I knew it wasn't over. Kevin showed up at my office on a Tuesday. He looked terrible. He had lost weight, his clothes were wrinkled, and there was a desperate, manic look in his eyes. Adeline, he said, trying to flash his charming smile, but it looked more like a grimace. Baby, I've missed you. Can we talk? I didn't look up from my computer. I'm busy, Kevin.
Security is on the way.
Don't be like that, he hissed, leaning over my desk. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. The bank is calling every day. My parents, they kicked Doreen out, but she has nowhere to go, so she's sleeping in my car. I need $40,000 just to cover the interest and the minimum payment.
Just lend it to me.
We're practically married. We aren't anything, I said, finally meeting his eyes. And I don't have money for you.
You do, he snapped.
I know you got that bonus. Look, I'm sorry about the new year. I'm sorry about the ginger. I'll make it up to you. But you can't leave me to drown. Why don't you ask Doreen? I asked innocently. She's so capable. She makes such good soup. His face darkened. Shut up about her. This is your fault too. If you hadn't brought that cash. Kevin Simmons. I stood up. You borrowed money to show off. You let a jealous woman destroy it. You are a grown man. Live with the consequences. Security guards arrived, flanking him. As they dragged him out, he screamed, You heartless bitch. You'll regret this. You think you're better than me? I sat back down. My heart wasn't racing. I felt nothing but a cold, heavy satisfaction. A few days later, I heard through mutual friends that Kevin had been fired. Apparently, debt collectors had started calling his company's main line, harassing the receptionist. The big shot executive was humiliated and let go. I thought that might be the end of it. But I underestimated the toxicity of a cornered rat. It was a month later when I received the message. It wasn't from Kevin, but from Doreen. Adeline, please. I know you hate me. I deserve it. But Kevin is falling apart. He's drinking, he's talking about ending it. He just wants to say goodbye and apologize properly. We're leaving the city. Please, just one dinner.
For old time's sake.
He won't sign the divorce papers for our joint assets unless you come. I stared at the screen. Joint assets was a lure. We didn't have many, but my name was still tied to a car loan he was defaulting on.
It was the same setup as my previous life.
The apology, the whine, the attack. They were lazy. They were repeating the script because they thought I was the same Adeline. I texted back. Where? The Grand Suite at the Hilton. Tonight at 8. I smiled. In my past life, it was a dingy motel. They were trying to be classy this time, probably to lower my guard. I called a private investigator I had hired weeks ago, a burly ex-cop named Miller. It's happening, I said.
Tonight.
Are you ready? We're ready, Ms. Pruitt. We'll have audio and video rolling. Police are on standby for the signal. I dressed carefully. I wore a high-necked black dress, elegant but restrictive. Underneath, however, I taped a small voice recorder to my chest. When I arrived at the hotel suite, the air smelled of lavender and expensive room service. Kevin was clean-shaven, wearing a suit that was slightly too big for him now. Doreen sat on the sofa, looking meek, her hands folded in her lap. Addie, Kevin said, his voice trembling with performed emotion. Thank you for coming. Let's get this over with, I said, sitting in the armchair furthest from the bed. You said you'd sign the release forms for the car. I will, Kevin said. He gestured to the table. A bottle of red wine sat there, already open. 3 glasses poured. But first a toast to letting go of the past. Doreen stood up and brought me a glass. Her hand shook slightly.
I'm sorry, Adeline.
For the ginger.
For the money.
For everything. I took the glass. The dark red liquid swirled. In my last life, I had drunk this without hesitation. 10 minutes later, I couldn't move my limbs. It smells expensive, I noted. It is, Kevin said, watching me closely. Drink up. I brought the glass to my lips, then paused. You know, Kevin, this reminds me of something. What? He asked, sweat beading on his forehead. The ginger, I said. Remember how you said I was mixing up your habits with mine? I think I mixed up something else, too. What are you talking about? Just drink the wine, Adeline.
I'm allergic to alcohol, he lied smoothly.
Or, wait, maybe that was you? Kevin's patience snapped. He exchanged a look with Doreen. The veneer of the apology cracked. Just drink the damn wine, Adeline, he shouted. No, I said, setting the glass down firmly. I don't think I will. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The meekness vanished from Doreen's face, replaced by a twisted sneer. She knows, Doreen hissed. Kevin, she knows. Kevin's face contorted. He lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. You think you're so smart? You ruined my life. You owe me that money. So, this is the plan? I asked, my voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through me. Drug me? Compromise me? Take photos and blackmail me for the money. Kevin froze. How did you? Or maybe it's worse, I continued, staring into his eyes. Maybe you invited some friends over? Like last time? Last time? Kevin frowned, confusion flickering through his rage. What last time? It doesn't matter, I said. But Kevin, look at the door. He turned. The door to the bedroom burst open. But it wasn't the thugs he had hired. It was Miller and 2 uniformed police officers. Police! Miller shouted. Hands where I can see them. Doreen screamed and tried to run for the bathroom, but an officer grabbed her arm. Kevin stood paralyzed, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. We have everything on the wire, Miller said, tapping his ear. Conspiracy to commit extortion, attempted assault. Plus, we found the guys you paid in the lobby downstairs. They rolled on you instantly. Kevin turned to me, his eyes wide with terror. Addie.
No.
It was a joke. It was just a prank. I stood up and smoothed my dress. I walked over to the table and picked up the wine glass I had refused. Test this, I said to the officer. You'll find a heavy dose of sedatives. I looked at Kevin one last time. You know, in another life, you won. You killed me. But you were stupid then and you're stupid now. You never realized that the only reason you succeeded was because I loved you. I leaned in close, whispering so only he could hear. I hope prison food doesn't have ginger in it. The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. The text messages between Kevin and the thugs, the recording of their plan to ruin her, so she has to pay, and the spiked wine sealed their fate. Kevin's parents tried to intervene. They came to the courthouse, wailing about how I was a demon who seduced their son and then framed him. They gave interviews to anyone who would listen, claiming the $500,000 was stolen by me, not burned by Doreen. But the internet is a cruel place. Someone leaked the video of the New Year's Eve dinner. I had secretly recorded it on my phone in this life, just in case. The video of Doreen admitting to grinding the ginger, Kevin's allergic reaction, and the subsequent revelation of the burnt money went viral. The public opinion crushed them. They were the Ginger family, a laughingstock. Kevin was sentenced to 10 years for conspiracy to commit kidnapping and assault. Doreen, as an accomplice, got 6. I didn't go to the sentencing. I had better things to do. 3 years later, I stood on the balcony of my new penthouse, looking out over the city skyline. The wind was cool, biting with the promise of winter, but I felt warm. My company was thriving. I had launched a line of organic, allergy-safe gourmet foods. It was a petty little nod to my past, but it made me millions. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the prison system, an automated update I had requested. Inmate transfer, Kevin Simmons. Medical ward. Curious, I called a contact I had in the system. What happened? I asked. Guy got into a fight in the cafeteria, the guard told me. Someone stole his tray. He tried to fight back, got beat pretty bad. Jaw wired shut. He'll be drinking through a straw for months. And Doreen? She's having a hard time. Turns out the other women don't like inmates who try to drug other women. She's in protective custody, mostly solitary. I hung up. I went to the kitchen. I chopped some fresh scallions. I sliced some garlic. And then I reached for a knobby root of ginger. I sliced it thinly, the spicy, sharp scent filling the air. I wasn't allergic. I never was. In my first life, I had told them I was allergic because I hated the taste. In this life, I used it as a weapon. I threw the ginger into the sizzling pan. The aroma rose up, strong and cleansing. I cooked a meal for myself. I sat down at my table, alone but not lonely. I took a bite. The ginger was sharp, burning my tongue pleasantly. It tasted like victory. The past was ash. The future was mine. And it tasted wonderful.